Yes,
Any
come
quick
on.
questions? Can we
What's
ask
that?
you any quick questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've never heard before that Joseph was married before. Where in Scripture?
You don't see it in Scripture. You won't see it in Scripture, but you'll see it in history. Okay, the archives. I had this validated when I was in California. You know the one guy, Rick Wadge, who's on the Shepherd's Heart with me?
Okay.
He actually, I talked to him about this topic, and he actually showed me in the writings of the Sanhedrin and in the writings of, he's got this is what he does. This is why Rick can pull out some of the most amazing things. He's taken every book of history, and he has a secretary that all she does every day is she scans every page, breaks apart the bindings and scans every page. Then whenever he plugs into his computer, he pulls up a topic. Every single resource is scanned, and then he pulls up all the information. So he doesn't have to read 1 million pages of text. It's all pulled up for him anywhere those terms are used. And so I validated these things, that this was the historical setting of Yeshua.
How cool is that?
It's way cool.
So is that what Valerie's going to be doing soon?
Valerie's going to be doing that real soon, yeah. Okay?
Can't wait.
So actually, Tomas, if you'd like me to, I can text Rick and I can say, hey, send me the information for the source.
I would like that.
Okay, because it's interesting. When I saw that, I just looked and I went, that makes sense why the people thought what they did. I mean, it's one thing to think that he was illegitimate, okay?
Yeah.
And to say that he was the son of a bastard, I mean, that was one thing. But it's another thing to understand his older brothers and sisters, and now the reason why, well, here's the youngest, kind of like this Joseph syndrome.
So was he the only
Wow.
offspring of Miriam?
That's all we know.
Okay.
Well,
Because
he
they
had
do
no
refer to
way
him
of-
as James, his brother, and, but those were from the
They
previous
were from the
marriage.
previous, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right, which is kind of interesting, because when the Catholics hold to the fact that Mary only had one, well, history kind of says she had one. And so it's interesting, that. So there's some
she only had
interesting.
one child?
Okay, well, that seems to be what history shows. Now, of course, I wasn't there, so I'm just telling you what I've seen in documentation of the writings that are back there. So, here we are, we get to speculate on all these types of things, and that's why I tell you guys in relationship to life, I'm a pan-tribist on just about everything. I know what I think, but I'm a pan-tribist. I don't get in arguments with people over things because it doesn't profit. So I wait until it pans out. One day when I see Yeshua, and I ask him a question while we're sitting on the bank fishing, okay? Then you know what will happen? He'll say, actually I did. I had 6 other brothers and I had 2 sisters, and then my mom, Mary, just had me. And that was good enough. She said, I have the perfect child.
I've been waiting all this time.
Why do I have to do any more? Okay. So let's go back to the beginning. And let's set a foundation for ourselves. So let's go back to Genesis chapter 1. Now, this is where my heart is, and this is what I'm learning and what I'm growing, that I'm going to take back to you, and I'm going to reestablish this concept of something that you're very familiar with. As I was witnessing to a man, it might have been yesterday before we came here. We got here late, but I was talking to a man about the Moedim, and I was expressing to him how every time I see the sun, the moon, and the stars, and many of you know that this is true of me, every time I see the sun come up, when I step out tonight and I see that full moon, and when I have to get up for that midnight run to the bathroom, and I see that moon lighting my path, I will remind myself that the sun, the moon, and the stars, there is a sign for me, to point me to something beyond itself, and that something else is these appointed times. So if we go back to Genesis chapter 1, you did that where nobody saw you. That was as good as the bug. That was too much fun. No. This is why we come to Sukkot. Another one of the reasons. Okay. Before I can go any further, I have to go back and I have to review something that you all probably know that I hold to this position. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a picture for you without going into great explanation. I'm going to draw a picture for you so that you will know what I'm going to base this next concept on. Okay? So, I believe that in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, in the 7 words that are given to us in English and the 10 words that are given in 10 words in English and 7 in Hebrew, okay, that God created the heavens and the earth and it was done in verse 1. Okay? According to Isaiah chapter 14, I believe that Lucifer, the anointed cherub, was placed in a position to rule and reign over all of creation. According to Ezekiel chapter 28, and I can use the whole chapter, but in chapter 28, we have a picture that speaks of Lucifer being cast down 2 times. And in the process of being cast down, it's because he exalted himself and he made himself become like God. As a result of this, there's going to be a pattern that's established in Scripture. And the pattern that's going to be established is whenever a person is placed in position of rulership over a creation and they fall from that position or are disqualified, then this realm in which they are ruling over goes into ruin. Okay? Good. It goes into ruin. Okay? So now, what we have here is we have the heavens and the earth in Genesis 1:1. But in Genesis chapter 1:2, the Scripture speaks of the earth as being formless and void. This is in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. And it says, "And the earth became formless and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was agitatingly moving on the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light." Okay? And God called the light day, and he called the darkness night, and the evening and the morning are the first day. Okay? God saw it, he said, Tov. He said, that's good. Now, what we have here is we have something, if this is correct, and I'm telling you it is, okay? Just because it's my personal opinion, and it happens to be right. Okay, this sin that took place from here brought this into a state where in Hebrew it's called tohu and bohu. And what this is these are 2 words which speak of chaos and confusion. Now this is going to be important for you to know, because if you don't know this, then you will not understand the reason why God created Adam and Eve the way he did. This is important, because this is going to reveal to us much. Okay? Now remember, I'm telling you my personal opinion, and though you know I'm always joking when I say, and it happens to be right, it's my fun way of just saying, hey, just giving you some food for thought. If I ever make a statement that says, hey, just some food for thought for you, you can guarantee that I've probably spent 100 hours meditating upon that. But I always like to say things really casually when I'm cocksure. Okay? Like, hey, well, let me just give you some food for thought. If you hear me say that to you, you can flat guarantee I've spent 100 hours or more meditating upon this. Years meditating upon it. Okay? If I say that. But I say it real casually because I don't like to be offensive to anyone. I just like people to think, hey, the dude's just kind of giving me some food for thought. And then when they walk away, they go, wow, maybe that was good food for thought. Or maybe they say flush it. But whatever, it's the perspective that I'm giving. So I'm going to give you some food for thought. I've spent, I can promise you, I've spent 30 years on this thought. And I've hashed this out at least once a year. I mean, in detail. Hash what I'm going to share with you the next 10 minutes. So I've really given this a lot of serious thought. And I built, in my own mind, I've built layers all the way through Scripture that match this identical pattern that I'm going to show you. At least 7. And I think I'm on number 8. So now what he does is he finds the earth in a state of confusion. But then when God speaks and he says, let there be light, and there was light, and the evening and the morning of the first day. And so on this first day, he evaluates it and he says, it is tov, it is good. And so great, the evening and the morning, they're the first day. We have light and we have darkness. Now on day 2, okay, now we have water that's surrounding the earth. Okay? And then on day 2, we're still going to have this evening and morning. He's not going to do anything with the light or with the evening, but what he's going to do is he's going to separate the Mayim from the Shemayim. And so now we have the Shemayim, which is the waters above, the fire waters above, and we have the waters here. So you remember when we were over here on this part of the board, we took in verse 19, verse 31, and verse 33, and we saw that, strangely enough, Mayim was added to this. And so he was trying to teach something. And so this is day 2. And so on day 2, as he's doing, he doesn't say that this is good. He actually leaves it out. He doesn't say that this is good. He doesn't say lo tov, which is no good. Okay, he doesn't say tov, good. He just omits completely. And that's important because day 2 is really important for you to understand. Okay, that he doesn't put an affirmative on it. So on day 1, we have an affirmative. On day 2, we have nothing. On day 3, we see what he does is he separates. We still have the evening and the morning. Okay, but on this day, what does he do? He separates the water from the dry land. And he brings the herb-bearing seed and the fruit-bearing trees and he puts them on day 3. Okay, and so now he evaluates this and he says, he gives it a double smile on day 3, and he tells us that it is tov twice, which is important and it's significant. On day 4, which I think is the most significant day of creation, or what I'm going to not call creation, I call it the creation story for everybody. We still have the evening and the morning is the 4th day, but now what's going to happen is he's going to put the sun, he's going to put the moon, and he's going to put the stars in the sky. And the reason is because he's going to give us these things to govern the day and to govern the night. But it's interesting, and this is an important point for all of us, is that what Yahweh Elohim has not done is he didn't put the sun, the moon, and the stars on day 1. But yet we had light on day 1. And he didn't do it on day 2 in order to be able to cause the plants to grow. See, there was enough light to cause the plants to grow and the herb-bearing seed and everything like that on day 3. He knew the light source that he was given. But here on day 4, he gives these for signs, and he gives these for seasons, and he gives them for days, and he gives them for years. And so this is the reason why he puts the sun, the moon, and the stars. So now on day 5, what he does is we still have the evening and the morning. And so then what he does is he does the fishes of the sea, okay, and he does the birds of the air on this day, on day 5. He says that this was good on day 4, and he says that this is good on day 5. So he approves of his work and what his word says and what it accomplishes. And so now on day 5 we have the fishes and the birds, and then day 6 we now have the evening and the morning still, so nothing's changed there. But on day 6, now we have all the cattle, the beasts of the field, and we have man being formed. Actually, specifically Adam. Okay? That's important, because this word Adam is going to change your life. And hopefully, it will change your marriage. And hopefully, it will help you understand God's overall game plan. So now, this is day 6. He evaluates it. He says, it's good. Day 7, it's interesting because there's no mention of evening on this day in Genesis chapter 2. So I'm not even going to put the evening here because it's omitted for some reason. Okay, now, I think I know the reason why it's omitted. Okay, because we see the reality of the 7th day in the millennial reign. where there'll be no more night. Okay? So there's something significant here. Now you may notice that I drew this going upward. The reason I did is because, according to my opinion, this was a process of him restoring all things.
Yeah.
So what we have is, we have a perfect creation. So everything is created in verse 1. Then we see in between verse 1 and verse 2, we see the creation coming into ruin. Then we see a 6-day process of restoring all things to this 7th day. Now this 7th day is going to be called the day of rest. It's what we call Shabbat. And so everything in Scripture points out to this day. This is also going to be known as the millennial kingdom. Okay, this 7th day. This is going to be the day when our inheritance is realized. This 7th day. This is the day that we find that after God has created man in his own image, that he places man, and I'm going to put here a note for your notes, Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. He actually puts man in a position to rule and reign. Okay? So, now this is interesting, because this thought right here takes us to where now it appears that we have 2 rulers on the scene. But we don't have 2 rulers on the scene. According to Isaiah chapter 14 and Ezekiel chapter 8, and if we went into Jeremiah chapter 4 and we dissected the Psalms and we went all over the place, we would find that at this particular point, Lucifer, Hasatan, is disqualified. He's disqualified ruling and reigning in that position. Okay? And so, we're just doing a history lesson. Okay? And so now we see he's disqualified. So the creation comes into ruin. So God, over a 6-day period, begins restoring it. And then at the end of the 6th day, he puts a man, Adam, he puts him in position of ruling and reigning over all of creation, entering into the day of rest. Okay? So here's where the story becomes interesting. Because until this moment happened, even though he was disqualified, he still continues to rule and reign over this creation that's being restored. Now, this is why Satan himself seeks to come over here and try to disqualify Adam and Eve. But it's interesting because he attacks the woman. Okay? He doesn't attack the man. And I'm going to explain this. I'm going to explain this within your families. I'm going to explain this within your marriages so that you can understand why is it that the woman's getting attacked? And why does she get attacked? If we don't understand this, men, then you're going to probably be blind all your life and you need to go down the pool of Siloam. Okay? So maybe this will be the time of year when our eyes are opened up to be able to see some things.
I'm too
Okay?
tired.
That's okay. Go to sleep. It's Sukkot. It's a
Let's
time of
get right.
celebrating when you can celebrate, and when you're tired, just rest. It's okay. It's okay. That's why I said anybody needs to exit stage left, go feel free. Okay? So now what ends up happening is we know that in Genesis chapter 3, we know that the temptation comes, and we know that Adam and Eve are going to be disqualified. So I'm going to put DQ'd. Now what's interesting is when they're DQ'd, guess what's going to happen to the very creation in which they were placed in order to be able to rule and reign? It comes into ruin. Okay? It comes into ruin. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line like this.
I'm gonna hear it.
And so guess what? Now the creation is in ruin. Okay? Now, this is gonna be important, because now what Yahweh Elohim's gonna do is according to the exact same pattern that he just did, we're gonna go, actually I should have made this one equal here. Day 1, 1,000 years. 2,000 years. 3,000. 4,000. 5,000. 6,000, and at the end of that 6,000th year, guess what he's gonna do?
His king is gonna return.
That's right. And he's gonna come, the man is coming back for his bride. And the two are gonna become one. They're gonna enter into that 7th day, the 7th 1,000th year. Millennial reign. During that time, and during all of this time, during this restoration period, here's the restoration. Second Peter, chapter 3, verse 8, where Peter says, I don't want you guys to be ignorant, but one day is to the Lord as 1,000 years. And if you go back and you read it, we oftentimes think, I'm going to say something that might be disagreeable with you, if that's okay. In 2 Peter chapter 3, when you read the opening story, everybody thinks that's talking about Noah's flood. It's not. It's talking about Lucifer's flood. Lucifer's? Oh. Go back and read it carefully. It sounds like Noah's flood because we use Noah again in chapter 3. But you'll notice that this story happens before Noah's flood. There's an integrating of the stories. And you'll notice that the heavens that were and the earth that were perished. In Noah's flood, the earth didn't perish. Only that which was breathing perished. 2 Peter chapter 3. Okay, actually, verses 1 through 8. Okay, where the individuals will be talking about the scoffers in the last times. Well, let's do this because, it's Sukkot. We need to sleep anyway. So let's go, except for the young bucks. All the rest of you are so beautiful, you don't even need to go to bed.
Alan, are you done with the drawing?
I am done with the drawing, and I'm going to go over to 2 Peter chapter 3. I'm going to read for you verses 1 through 8, and I'm going to tell you the reason why I think that we're dealing with more than the story of Noah, but we're dealing with what theologians call Lucifer's flood. Yes, Dale?
I wanted to ask you more about this part over here where you first started, where you created the heavens and the earth and the stars. Well, I really don't think that Elohim is quite done with the universe because it keeps getting bigger and more stars are being formed. And don't you think so?
I think you're absolutely correct. Just as in Matthew chapter 24, when the disciples asked the question about when would be the sign of the temple being destroyed, what would be the sign of his coming, and what would be the sign of the end of the age, the temple at that time, Herod's temple, was not even completely built. Just as the temple was not completely built here. Okay? Just as he's not done here. He's still working. He's restoring. So this pattern right here, Dale, is actually the biblical pattern after man's fall that God is using to restore things. And so, yes, he's still working. And he'll use this 7th day to complete it.
Do you think that's when we're having all the turmoil in the earth?
Yes, yes. As we
See,
talked
I
about on
kind of
Shabbat,
thought-
that the heavens and the earth are witnessing against us as to what's going on. So the answer is yes. Jim?
Those, two things. One, they almost become the two witnesses to the pattern.
Okay,
You've got Noah's and Satan's. They become two witnesses.
okay.
And also, as you did that, it kind of dawned on me, those are Aliyah.
Yeah, they actually are. And that's very important because there's stages. Like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 6 stages of Aliyah to bring us to the final step. Yeah, there's more significant stuff in here. I'm telling you, it's layered, so rich all the way through Scripture. So now we've got this picture right here, and we're coming to this time. So I wanted to read to you 2 Peter chapter 3. And then you can at least understand why I think. I mean, you know, here's something that might be of value to you. This might be of value to you. You know, you're probably going to find that there's people who've got differing opinions than you. You might just find that sometime. Okay? But you know what? That's okay, because you're not right either. Completely, 100%, are you? We're just not completely right. We're all just growing. We're all learning. Okay? We're gleaning. I mean, we're still feeding, aren't we? So just like the universe, Dale, it's still growing, we're still growing. Okay? So that's great. So here's the thing that I want to tell you that might mean something significant to you. Would you give somebody a break? If they even use one scripture, I don't care if you think it's out of context or not, they at least used a scripture. At least give them the benefit of the doubt. That they at least went back to an authoritative stance. Now, they may not know everything you do, but then again, there's people who know things that you don't know.
A lot.
So why do we get like so superior-minded? Because we fell for the same thing that he fell for. We become wise in our own conceits. And we think that we know something. When in actuality, you know nothing of your own. But everything that you've been given has been given to you from the Father. Everything. So how in the world can we boast? We can't. But we do. Aren't we funny? We are. So take into consideration this mindset. That if other people have a differing opinion than you, it's okay. So this is what I do. It's not because I don't have my own opinion. It's not because I don't think that I'm right. I think I'm always right. I do. You know I do. If I didn't think I was always right, I wouldn't stand before you and teach. It'd be silly for me to get up here and teach you something that I didn't think was right. But it's your job to go back and test it to see if it is. So when Fantastico or Deanna's up here teaching, or when Gabriel was up this last weekend teaching, or you know, Jim or Jay or Jim number 1, and anybody's teaching, you know what? It doesn't matter. They're teaching you what they think is right. You just have to take notes, go back and search these things out to be true. Is that fair? You know?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now take a look, and I didn't mention Roger, okay, because Roger always seems to get to teach when I'm not here. So, 2 Peter chapter 3. Now, just to help you understand, for those of you that really like to go back and do some studying, you're going to find that 2 Peter is a commentary on the book of Jude. You can take the first 3 verses of Jude, and you will find that it is 2 Peter chapter 1. You could take verses 4 through whatever, I think it's like verse 13, that's chapter 2. Then you pick up in verse 14, and you're going to see chapter 3. And it goes boom, 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 boom.
Did you say Jude or Joe?
Jude.
Jude. Oh,
Jude. Jude is an outline for 2 Peter. And though it was written by 2 different guys, they're dead on the money, because they both understood something. They both understood it. So what you're going to find is that in chapter 1 actually continues in chapter 3. And chapter 2 is a big-time parenthesis dealing with false prophets. But you can pick up at the end of chapter 1, and you can start in chapter 3, and all of a sudden it reads like a book. Chapter 2 is like a parenthesis. And so at the end of chapter 1, and we're going to go here, okay, in just a second, okay, he's going to set this story up. But if you don't know this story is being set up, because that's what good teachers do. Good teachers lead you to a conclusion. Don't manipulate you. Lead you to a conclusion. They gather their information. Here's a good example. We've taken Deanna's book, I Am Hebrew. Okay, isn't that what it's called? I Am Hebrew. I'm a Hebrew. And we've taken that